The word is tchotchke. Not chachi, not chai tea, tchotchke. This week I'm making a shelf for tchotchkes. You know, collectibles, doodads, knickknacks, whatever you want to call it. Little things that need a place somewhere on a shelf. I'm making a shelf for it. I'm starting out with a piece of 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood that's going to be cut into strips. These strips were a couple different widths to make up the outside frame and the inside grid that will subdivide the shadow box. My plans call for a total of 5 pieces to be cut at exactly the same length, 2 of the wider pieces and 3 of the shorter pieces. So I'm going to measure once and cut it at the same time so they're all the same. After using the table saw and the chop saw, I have 4 sets of boards. I have 2 wide ones at 31 inches, 2 wide ones at 24, 3 narrow boards 31, and 3 narrow boards at 23. These 4 will make up the outside frame. These 3 will make up the inside cubby holes. Then it was back to my drawing for some layout. I'll add a picture of this drawing to the build article on my website. It also has a cutting diagram. It's not really a plan, just a sketch that makes sense to me. If it makes sense to you too, then I guess you could build one to these specific specs. Okay, after a lot of careful thinking and quite honestly, maybe some overthinking, I think I've got this figured out. I have a layout line for my cut laid out here with the outside edge of my table saw. Over here on this end, I have 2 boards. One that's the width of the half lap here, and then another one just to make sure that once I remove this first one, I'll be able to slide this over and I should get the exact width of the cut here. But I want to make sure that I'm not pinched up against my fence up here, so I have this second board in here as well. I think it makes sense. In the end, these half-lap joints were the right depth, but some of them turned out too wide. If I were to do this again, I'd use the dado blade set that I just picked up, which would guarantee the cuts are just the right width. At the time I was doing this, I didn't have one. Cutting half-laps in the narrower boards left me with a grid that slipped together for the center and the 4 wider pieces that will make up the outside frame. I sanded everything down, patched some mistakes, then started assembling the outside frame with glue and brads. With that together and square, I could measure and then cut a piece of 1/4-inch plywood for the back. I laid a couple pieces of 1/2-inch plywood down first because the back isn't meant to sit flush. Then I put the grid pieces in place. The assembly on this is a little bit weird. First I used glue and brads to get the long pieces in place. Because of the way this is laid out, I could just lift them out, glue them up, and put them back into place one at a time. Then I flipped everything over, removed the back, and began fastening the shorter grid pieces into place with glue and brads too. This time I used glue to connect these vertical slats to the horizontal slats as well. This ties the grid to the frame and the grid pieces to each other. Now it's time to use glue to tie the back to the grid. No brads for this part. I used the glue somewhat sparingly so I wouldn't have a bunch of squeeze out making a mess on the inside. Next it was time to cut the French cleat piece for the back to hang it on the wall. Now you know why I made sure the back panel was recessed earlier. I finished it off with a couple coats of clear satin lacquer. Here it is on the wall and loaded up with a bunch of tchotchkes, knickknacks, and other assorted junk. It all started with this, a little die-cast version of the pickup truck from the TV show The Fall Guy. I picked this up a couple years ago, brought it home, put it on the shelf, and I just keep bringing home more stuff to put with it. What do you like to collect? What are your favorite places to find unusual collectibles? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments below. I really like to share what I'm working on. I hope to share some inspiration as well, because I think the most important thing we can do is help make more makers. Thanks for watching.